So let me give you a brief introduction about Pawan Vaswani, who exactly he is. So I met Pawan, I think 3 years back, Pawan. So Pawan was a student within Medicaps University. He was doing his electronics and instrumentation degree from there. And that's when Pawan came to me, and he wasn't decided about his career options. He had some interest within his core engineering area, but also wanted to explore other management related degree options. That's when we decided upon that engineering management would be a good option. And especially anybody who's coming from engineering background hasn't decided upon his specialization area, isn't very clear which area he wants to get into. EM is a very good degree which gives you freedom to choose upon your specialization in your postgraduate degree. So as with Pawan, when he wasn't decided, we gave him the option of engineering management. He worked really hard on his GRE examination, followed the process very diligently. Just a moment. My connection, I'm telling you, is going to be unstable throughout the session. Something is going wrong since morning. So please bear with me if my voice is breaking and you're not able to hear me. You can just type your query within the chat box if something goes wrong. I'll try to keep it connected. I've in fact kept my hotspot also on in case something goes wrong. I'll keep that as my backup. So I was talking about Pawan's story. So Pawan met me and he started with his GRE preparation, gave his examination, followed the process very diligently. And he went to Northeastern University for his engineering management degree, which is considered to be one of the most coveted programs in United States of America. So he completed his engineering management, and throughout his studies, he was in touch with me. And within his coursework, he realized that supply chain management is something which he is really curious about. He wants to explore more about supply chain management. The good part about his university is that university was offering a lot of different specialization and flexibility within that. So he can in fact get into business analytics with that engineering management degree. He can get into supply chain management. He can get into operations management. He can get into project management. He can get into product management. So there are various fields and options which are open through that engineering management degree. So Pawan went for it, realized that supply chain management is his thing, right? And then he started developing his profile for that. Good part about his university is that they conduct a very good co-op event, which sadly this time got impacted because of all that COVID situation. And still Pawan was able to get good co-op within Wayfair, which is one of the top 3 logistics and supply company within US. So he started his co-op over there. And then after that, I think he'll be the best person to talk about his journey and what all he has went through, what all efforts he was putting. And he also faced some challenges and failures. He'll be discussing that aspect. So I'll start first of all with Pawan's journey. So welcome Pawan for the session. And first of all, thank you so much for taking this for all these students, and especially the ones who are struggling in US right now with their OPT and jobs. They were actually looking forward to this kind of session. So welcome Pawan. Thank you so much for coming here. Yeah.
Hello everyone. This is Pawan Vaswani. Right now I'm in California, and biggest welcome to the students or the people who have joined from East Coast, because it's 1:30 a.m. at night for them, right? And good morning to everyone sitting in India. So let's start with the presentation. I'll go through each and every step regarding the resume, how to build up your resume, and what all stuff you need to go through while preparing your resume. So give me a moment while I share my screen with you guys.
So I think now you'll get the option, Pawan.
Okay, so let me know whenever you guys can see my screen. Pankaj sir, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, everybody can see, I think.
Okay.
I hope everybody is able to hear as well.
Okay, cool. So welcome guys. This is a resume one-on-one event by Skill Maestro. I would be the host for this event. And what exactly a resume is? Resume is nothing but a hammer to break the door for the job applications. Now, why job applications? is very important. I'll go into that. But let's start with my introduction, what I have been doing since past 5 to 6 years. So basically, I did my electronics and instrumentation engineering from Medicaps. Cheers to all the guys who are doing it from Medicaps. Then I graduated in 2018. Decided to do my master's in engineering management from Northeastern University. I joined the class of 2018 over there and graduated back in 2020. In 2019, I got a chance to work with Wayfair, who is, we can say, the only company who is doing the e-commerce, furniture marketing, and retail services within US. So I got an opportunity to do supply chain management co-op with them. Back in January 2020, I returned to Northeastern University, did my final semester over there, and finally, back in July, got a job at Google as a commodity and supply chain specialist. Now, moving towards the event, we are going to discuss multiple things related with the resume and the job aspects in US. Now, the first thing is, which we are going to discuss, is how we can land up a job or a co-op or an internship within US. There are multiple ways, but being from a different country, our ways or our paths toward the job or internship gets very limited. Second thing which we are going to discuss is why online application is very important. Many people who go from different countries don't understand the importance of online application, but actually it is very important. Third thing which we are going to discuss is ATS, that is automatic tracking system or application tracking system, which many big companies and medium-aged companies are using in US. Fourth thing which we are going to discuss is sections. Which sections should you include in your resume or which sections you should not include in your resume. Fifth is how to build your resume. What are the rules? What are the do's and what are the don'ts for your resume? Now, when someone hears about resume in US, one of the biggest parts of your resume are your bullet points, because they speak for yourself. Once you are done with the bullet points and once your bullet points are very effective, that is when your resume finds its place in the job market. Finally, before submitting an application, you need to check the effectiveness of your resume. There are multiple ways to do that, but if your resume is not that effective, there comes a point when you need to customize your resume. And we'll go through that, like how to find a job description, how to find the keywords in the job description, how to find skills in the job description which you should include in your resume or which you should not include in your resume. Cool. So let's start with the presentation. So basically, coming from India or coming from any other country into US, there are mainly three processes or three ways to get a job, in job, co-op, or an internship in USA. One is online application, one is networking, and the other is career fairs. Now, according to me, one of the biggest players of, we can say the biggest players of job market is the online application. And I'll tell you why. You might have heard many people saying that networking gets you a job or gets you an internship. Yes, it does, but it does for the people who have been staying in US for last 20 years. You cannot expect to enter USA. You are just 6 months into your graduation and you say that you will get an internship through networking. That is not going to happen. How we can leverage networking into our job finding aspect, that I am going to cover in the slide itself. And the third thing is career fairs. Many people think that career fair is used for landing up a job, but no, career fair is not used for landing up a job. The success ratio for getting a job through career fair is only 0.01% in USA. Career fair is just there to meet the HR people, meet the recruiter, learn about the culture of the company, so that if any company comes up or if any job comes up within that company, you could apply. And once you get the interview, you know about the culture, what is the culture, how the company works, what are the different teams in the company, and what perks they are giving or what disadvantages those companies have. So career fairs are for those things, not for landing up a job. So online application is the best way to put yourself forward. For example, there's a job on the portal or say LinkedIn. you see it, you like the job, you think that you would be the best fit for that job, you apply on that portal. Okay. But how does networking comes into play? Just a second. Yeah. So how does networking comes into play? For example, you did a job application. You know someone is working at that company whom your parents might be knowing or whom your friends might be knowing. Once you get an interview, you can reach out to your friends or your parents to reach out to that person that, okay, I am interviewing for this company. Give me the cultural background of that company so that I could crack the interview. Networking is not, doesn't work like this. Like, okay, you got a job over there, just refer me and I'll also get a job. Funny story, I got job at Google like 4 weeks back, and two of the people whom I have barely spoken in last 2 years called me and said, "Arey bhai, refer kar de. Everything will work out." So those are not the things how networking works out. So make your first impression through the job online application, and then move towards networking or finding the people who are working in that company. Yeah. So US heavily relies on online application. Online application is itself a biggest market or the biggest industry in US. They have like 10 billion worth of market in USA. Just whenever you enter US or whenever you are trying to get a co-op or internship, do like put 70% of your efforts in online application, 20% in networking, and 10% in career fair. I'm very loud and clear. Just do 70% of your efforts for online application, 20% for networking, and 10% for career fair. 20% and 10% of networking and career fair will eventually support you in your online application once you get an interview or once you crack through the ATS. Now, what is ATS? ATS is just application tracking system. Many big companies have started relying on application tracking system software. Why do they do that? This, for example, if a company posts a job on LinkedIn, there are millions of people out there on LinkedIn who are looking for jobs. Once they post the job, many, say 10,000 people applied for that job, and the recruiter for that position is only a single person. So it becomes difficult for him or her to parse out the resumes and select few candidates for the interviews. And that is not also fair if he or she just selects the top 100 candidates. That is not fair to the whole lot who has applied to that position. So what many US companies are doing, they are building up their application tracking system where they put in the keywords for that particular job description, put in the format which they are expecting out of candidate's resume, put in the skills which are expected in that job description. And once they build that package for a particular job description, your resume goes into application tracking system. Now, what application tracking system does is they take the resumes of the applicant, matches it with the format, skills, and the keywords which the company has entered in the application tracking system. If the resume and ATS results match by either 50 to 70%, then is the only case when your resume is put forward in front of the HR or the recruiter. Once that happens, you would be called for the phone screening. And how to crack the phone screening or how to crack the interview, we can discuss that in the next seminar. Now, the biggest thing is which sections to include in the resume and which sections not to include in the resume. Simple rule of thumb, just include 5 sections in the resume, because many ATS companies or many ATS softwares will reject out your resume if there are more than 5 sections. So just write your name in bold and capital letters on the top of your resume. That is not considered a section. That is just considered a unique selling point that, okay, this is your name, these are your contact details. In contact details, email is very important because that is the most used method to reach out to the candidate. Phone number is important, but if you're running out of space, you can delete it. LinkedIn, if say, what I have heard from multiple recruiters is, if you are a software developer or if you are looking for jobs in the software domain, then include your LinkedIn profile where they could find your projects on GitHub or your apps which you have built or website which you have built or whatsoever. So for software development, LinkedIn is very important on your resume. But apart from that, LinkedIn is very optional. You can either include it or leave it away. Address is very important because that is the point where recruiters sees, okay, this person is located in this country or this state, and our job location is in this state. Even if you are not able to include the whole address, just enter city, state, and zip code so that they could actually match up your location and they could find out where you are located. Now, the body of the resume should include at most 5 sections only: education, skills, work experience, academic projects, and co-curricular activities. This is what I like to present in my resume. You could change the order of these sections, but my thinking behind the order of this resume is, first, the person needs to know what education you're coming from, what graduate degree or what undergraduate degree you have been doing since last 2 years. Skill section gives the overall representation, or we can say the overall marketing of you, that, okay, this person is a package who has, say, Python, who knows SQL, who knows R, who knows how to do brainstorming sessions, who knows how to do Lean Six Sigma and all those stuff. Once the recruiter sees this, then they move towards the work experience, and then they actually go into your work that, okay, he has implied these skills into his past work experiences. Many people say that work experience should be on the top. I am not arguing that, but this is what I think. Once you are done with the work experience, there should be academic projects which show many transferable skills. For example, you were the leader of that project, or you managed a team of 5 people, or there were, say, some roadblocks in that project which you were the main point of contact for, and all those stuff. Doesn't matter if your academic project is related to the job you are applying for. Include the section academic project because that is the section which shows that you are capable of working in a team, leading a team, or you are capable to remove the roadblocks or do the innovative thinking or the critical thinking. Just include academic projects. Academic projects are as important as the work experience. Now, the last section is co-curricular activities. It totally depends upon you. If you have done some breakthrough in the research work, include the research work section. If you have done some good work in the leadership activities or the NGO activities, include that. US is not just about skills or not just about your past work experiences. US also sees that what you have been doing in the last 4 to 5 years apart from your professional career. So just include those things. That will weigh out your resume and that will make you stand apart. Cool. So next step is the most basic step, like how to build a resume. Step 1, start from scratch. Do not copy the resume. One of my friends copied some of the seniors' resume. His resume was blocked in ATS for Amazon's ATS, and his senior was working in Amazon. The senior who was working there lost his job because of this, and the person was blacklisted from Northeastern's co-op portal as well as applying from Amazon. So don't copy the resume. Start from scratch. There are basic templates in Word. There are basic templates available on internet which you can download or which you can start from scratch. Just start entering the information which I showed you in the previous slide. Now, second step is Just rewind back your memory for last 6 to 7 years. Start writing down on a paper that what you have been doing in the last 7 to 8 years. Doesn't matter if it is your work experience or not. Just write it down that okay, you took an entrepreneurship class in say high school and you did this project. Doesn't matter if it provided results or not. It shows that you were ready for the entrepreneurial aspect. I'm just giving this one example. You can say you were the captain of your high school soccer team. That shows that okay, you are athletic, you know how to build a team, or you know how to control a team. So include those things. Once you write down all the information in the resume, start formatting your resume. We'll discuss about the format in coming slides, but formatting of your resume plays a very important role. Once the format is set, then last step is to start trimming down your resume to fit in one page. Many people say that your resume could be of one page, 2 page. Don't listen to them. US ATS strictly relies on one page resumes. If your resume is going over by either one line or two line, your resume would be rejected until and unless you are applying for the marketing domain where two-page resumes are very common, where you need to provide your campaign ideas or something like that on the second page of the resume. So don't go over one page, just keep your resume to one page. Now there are some basic rules of thumb. First, as I mentioned, one page resume only. Second, no color resume. Only go for black and white format unless, as I said, unless you are applying for marketing, design, or specific domains where you need to submit your campaign ideas or you need to submit a say a product idea or something like that where color is essential. Don't use color formatting. Color formatted resumes are okay till you are applying to the universities. Once you are into the university, once you are applying in the US job market, don't use colors. Third, your borders, that is the horizontal borders and the vertical borders should be equal to zero point 0.5 inches or should be greater than that. Anything less than zero point 0.5 inches will be rejected out straight away in the ATS. No matter how good your resume is, if your borders are not greater than zero point 0.5 inches or not equal to zero point 0.5 inches, they would be straight away rejected. Last, as I mentioned, only 5 sections, not more than that. You can have less sections, and that is totally fine, but not more than 5 sections. Now, do's for the resume. Your resume should have the dates. Why dates are important in the resume? Many companies go through the dates very thoroughly to see if you have a gap in your resume or not. If you have a gap, it doesn't matter, but you should have the dates on your resume. Now, dates should be in the same format. Like I have seen multiple resume. I was used to work with the career design team at Northeastern University to review the resumes and have the interviewing skills polished. So many people used to do that. In the education section, they used to do, I started my education, say in April 2020, ended in August 2024. But in the work experience section, they will put dates like 04/18/2020 to 04/19/2024. Don't do that. Keep the formats of the date common across the resume. Don't change the format. It will get your resume rejected in ATS. Now, second thing is many people do like the headings of the resume are of different font and the bullet points are of different fonts. Don't do that. Keep the font simple. Keep the font similar for the whole resume. Now, these are the three font sizes which you should actually use. For heading 11, 12, or 13 is totally fine. For subheading 11 or 10 is totally fine. And for text, 10 is say the minimum point. Don't go below 10. Anything above 10 is totally okay, but don't go below 10. Because if the recruiter is not able to read your resume, he'll just pass it out. Now, once you have built up the resume, proofread it again and again so that there are no grammatical errors in that. because ATS heavily catches grammatical errors, because grammatical error finding softwares are very accurate. Like the research in the grammatical error finding softwares have been to a next level. So don't do any grammatical error in your resume. Your resume might get rejected out. If you are not confident about the grammar, which is very common for us coming from a different country, having a different cultural background, just go to your career centers or just go to Pankaj sir or Sandeep sir, or even if help is not available, you can also text me or reach out to me on LinkedIn. We can work through it. And if you are last and the most important point, if you are copying your content from LinkedIn or your resume's content and LinkedIn's content is similar, don't do that. You will end up in a big mess of plagiarism because ATS doesn't know what web is. ATS cannot differentiate between LinkedIn's content and web's content. If your content is similar to the LinkedIn's profile, ATS will straight away blacklist your profile from companies' job portals. So don't do that. Even if you are copying it, just tweak out the words or just use synonyms so that three words, like in the continuation, there are no three similar words. Okay. Now, I always knew the do's of the resume. I didn't know about the don'ts of the resume. I have learned about the don'ts with the past experiences. So the first one is never use symbols in your resume. If you want to represent a mobile number, just write mobile. Don't use a telephone symbol over there. ATS will reject it straight away. ATS cannot read through the symbols. They are not as simple as that. ATS are not based on Pictionary. ATS are based on words and the formats. So don't use symbols. No personal information. US heavily rejects resume, whether on ATS or not. If you have entered your personal information like age, sex, marital status, etc., your resume will get rejected whether it is on ATS or not. So don't do that. Don't even include your birth date in the resume. Third, I have seen many people entering the false GPA. Never do that, because I had a friend who got a job offer from a very good company, but when background check happened and when it was found out that he entered false GPA on his resume, he lost his job. So any falsification of the information on your resume will cause a big cost to you. So don't falsify your GPA. And many people say that if your GPA is less than 3.5, don't enter. I say I have learned from a lot of recruiters that many people want to see your GPA. Even if it is below 3, just enter it. If your resume or if your GPA is below 3 and then also you graduated with good stuff, you have good work experience, you have a story point to cover in your interview. That gives one of the data points where you can drive your interview that, okay, your GPA was very less, but then also you worked very hard to reach a point where the interviewers are interviewing you for a particular job description. Fourth, do not copy from internet. Do not plagiarize from anyone else's resume. It will not only harm you, but it will also harm other person who is applying in the same job role or who is applying in the same company. You will both end up in a very big mess. Fifth, no color coding. As I mentioned, just keep your resume for black and white. Don't do anything else. And the sixth and the most important point is, which many applicants fall into the trap of, is they generally provide the sensitive information about their past institutions or about their past company. For example, say XYZ company recorded a profit of XYZ million. That was actually very secretive, which need not to be go on your resume, but someone entered it. So the recruiter will think like, okay, if he's ready to leak out the information of his past company, he could do it for our company as well. So don't do that. Keep the things sensitive. Like, okay, if you want to say that you are a part of this much savings, just enter the percentage. Don't enter anything else. No one can figure out the actual income or the actual cost from the percentage, because they don't know the past percentage, they don't know the basic value, they don't know the gross value. So don't do that. Now, one of the biggest problems which many people face, which I faced, was the bullet points. As simple as that. Many times, if you have talked to Pankaj sir or Sandeep sir, they might have mentioned in their conversations that star analysis is one of the biggest things in an interview. STAR stands for situation, task, analysis, result. Build up your bullet points in the similar way. Say, this was the problem which company was facing. This was the analysis which I did. This was the implementation which I made, and this was the result. So that the recruiter knows the whole picture, that okay, you were the key player in that project, you saved XYZ amount of money, or you can be a good resource to the company. Don't wait that okay, your resume will get selected and then you will explain all these points in the interview. No, let the resume do the talking for you, so that in interview you have multiple stories to talk about. Don't wait for the interviewer that okay, interview will come and then I will explain each and every story to that interviewer. Don't do that. Second point is only one line bullet point. Sometimes you can go into 2 points, but I always prefer one line bullet point. It attracts the recruiter's attention, because at the first moment recruiter sees okay, your resume is presentable or not. If it is not presentable, he won't go into your resume to see what is written. If your resume is crammed up, he won't go into your resume. He won't, okay, he might see the skill section, education section, but in the work experience section he might not pay that much attention. So just follow one line bullet point and just follow the star analysis, and your bullet points will be totally fine. Star analysis, situation, task, analysis, result, nothing more. Now, one catch point in US job market is basically it might not fall in for the software development or marketing people, but it generally falls in for the data analytics, business analytics, construction management, supply chain management, project management, product development domains. Your results should always be in cost or efficiency, or if it is related to supply chain, then it should, or operations, then it should be lead time, cycle time, how much reduction in lead time you did, or something like that. So always base your bullet points on time, efficiency, and cost savings, nothing else. Uh, Mostly, your resume should focus on the positive results and the accomplishments. You can tell about your negative points, or the, we can say, the losses which you have incurred in your interview, and you can say like okay, you made this much loss, but then also you covered, or you managed to pull up your team in the positive balance sheet. So that is one thing. Now, once you have written the bullet points, always ask yourself what was the result in the bullet point. If the bullet point shows out the result, then you are good to go. If the bullet point doesn't show, like I have seen many resumes where people just said, I did the study for this company. Okay, you did the study, but what was the result for that study? Did it impact anything? Did you give any output to the company? Was the company in advantage that they invested so much resources on you for studying that particular project? So what was the result? That should be the final question for a particular bullet point. Doesn't matter if it is a small result or a big result, a result is a result. Now, the last formatting tip which I would give for the bullet points is always format the bullet points and make sure that the bullet points are aligned. Don't wait, or don't waste your time. Like, for example, many people do that. They keep the bullet points of a particular section to the left, and then they keep the bullet points of a particular section to the center or something like that. Don't do that. That is only going to get your resume rejected in ATS, nothing else. Now, your resume should have particular fields, should have particular environment, which many people don't know. Many people are like, okay, I did 4 years of job in software development. I'll just focus about what I developed, what applications I developed, or what website I developed, what web scraping I did, or something like that. They generally forget that US is not only about skills, US is about innovation, critical thinking, teamwork, leadership, communication. I have seen multiple people who didn't have any technical expertise in say data analytics, but they were good leaders, they were good team players, they had good communication skills, they knew how to innovate things in their domain or in any other domain, and they got a job as business analyst or data analyst without knowing anything, whether it is SQL, R, or Python. I know these kinds of people and I know how they function. I have seen their resume actually shows that okay, even if they didn't do anything on the coding part, they did. They support the team. They did innovation. They did critical thinking. Because in the end, these are the things which matter. If you talk to your manager, I'll share my experience. My manager, when interviewed me, she told me that I don't care if you know SQL, Excel, or R. I just care about your critical thinking and brainstorming abilities and whether you are able to gel up with the team or not. That is why I had to go through the multiple interview process so that they could judge me on these five domains: innovation, critical thinking, teamwork, leadership, communication. Many people on LinkedIn reach out to me saying that what skills should I gain? What should I do? So many people keep focusing on the hard skills like the coding skills, but they forget to develop these skills, that is innovation, critical thinking. Hard skills are important, but these skills are also very important. So keep these things in mind while you are writing the bullet points. For example, you mentioned that, okay, on your resume that our team was facing this much amount of problem and I saved it by, or I did something which saved the cost by 20%. But where's the innovation? What did you do? What was your analysis? What was your say what was your thinking, what process did you own? So this is the point where your resume should show okay, your teamwork, your leadership, your critical thinking, your innovation came into play. Now once your resume is ready with all these points, you need to check the effectiveness of your resume. Now many people don't know how to check the effectiveness of your resume. It is simple: peer feedback. Go to the friends of different domains, ask them whether they are able to understand what is written on your resume or not. For example, or let me put it in this way: many recruiters don't belong to the domain which you are applying for. They don't have any knowledge about the domain. But if they are able to understand what is written on your resume, they will automatically schedule a phone screening with you. So this is the point where friends feedbacks or seniors feedbacks or HR professionals or working professionals feedback come into play. Now, nothing related to this, but when I was doing my application, co-op application or job application, I used to get hundreds of rejections. But like many other people get rejection, they don't even reply back to the rejection. Once I used to get the rejection, I used to reply back to the HR that, okay, thank you for replying back to me. Can I have a 15 minutes chat with you? Obviously, out of 10 HRs, only one HR replied. And at that moment, or I used to have a chat with the recruiter to understand what they are actually looking for in the resume. I didn't learn these things from internet, or I didn't learn these things from my university's career center. I learned these things from the HR or from the recruiter who spent their 15 to 20 minutes with me after my rejection. And those HR are actually very helpful, who are going out of their way to help you out. Just a side point. Second is self feedback. Once you build up your resume, just read through your resume and think, do you even feel confident, or you have just put the words on the paper? If you feel confident, go ahead and take your resume to the career centers in your university. Every university, big, medium, or small, in USA has career centers. No one could complain that their university doesn't have career centers. If their university doesn't have career centers, go to the professors. Professors in USA have been in the market or have been in the industry for last 20 to 25 years, and they actually know what um, we can say what companies are looking for. Many people don't know this, but professors are a part of big, we can say, meetings which happen every year within the industries, because industry leaders guide the professors that what they are expecting out of their next employee, so that professors could train the students in the class so that they don't have something new, you can say, uh, so they don't have to face any new roadblock in their career. So professors are very knowledgeable about the resume. Don't think that he has only the knowledge for the four walls. He also has the knowledge outside the four walls. Go and approach him. He won't come to you saying that, okay, I can review your resume. Just go to him. And like companies use the online ATS softwares, but there are some good online ATS softwares which you can use as a resource to check your resume. One of the very good software is VMock. Many universities in USA provide free subscription to VMock. VMock actually tells you that where you are lacking on the format, where you are repeating a lot of words, where your alignment of the bullet points is going wrong. Just keep on working on those points and your resume is like good to crack any ATS. Now, the last step before submitting your resume is customization. Once you get or once you find a posting on internet, you go thoroughly through the job description. Once you read the job description, then read your resume and then ask yourself, do the job description and the resume have the same feel? Does the person in the resume can do the work mentioned in the job description? If yes, go ahead and submit your resume. If no, stop right there, take a turn towards customization, approach career center, approach your seniors, whatever you need to do, just do the customization. Without customization, your resume won't end up anywhere. Now, what does customization actually mean? So for example, in a supply chain domain, if I'm applying for a logistics specialist role and I don't have the word logistics, or I don't have the word transportation, or I don't have the word operations in my resume won't end up anywhere. So just consider the job description as a question and consider your resume as the answer, because in Indian education system we heavily rely on question and answer. So just consider job description as a question and your resume as the answer. Tailor your resume, tailor your answer so that you can get good marks. Just keep things in this way, you will end up in a very good job. Now there are some key points which the job description actually tells the person that, okay, we actually need these points in the person. If those points are not on his resume, we cannot put forward his resume. And those key points are entered into the application tracking system of that company. So if you are not entering those key points, you cannot track the application tracking system. Once you have done the customization, just ask yourself, does the candidate in the resume seems to be a good fit for this role? If yes, go ahead. If no, then more customization is required. Keep on customizing. Customization is the only key. I know it takes a lot of time, but keep customizing your resume. And after like say 200 to 300 applications, you would exactly know. For example, if a logistics analyst position comes up, you would exactly know what words you need to include in your resume. You don't even need to see the job description. You would automatically enter operations or logistics or analytical skills like critical thinking or SQL, R, Python, or something like that. So there will be a point after 200 to 300 applications where your process will become very faster in the customization of resume. But you need to reach till the point where you have done 200 to 300 applications. And I would suggest, don't listen to people who are saying just do say 200 to 300 applications and you would land up with a job. I actually did 1600 applications, gave around 500, or I guess 520 to be very specific, 520 initial phone screenings, gave 320 medium range interviews, and finally gave 50 rounds of final interviews and got rejected. So it takes a lot, and it takes a lot of patience and applications to reach to a point where you are actually good for cracking an interview. There are many points which needs to be covered out in the interview, but we can cover that in a different seminar or a different webinar. Now, I will show you a particular job description where we will find out some keywords, because many people find it difficult to see through the job description which keywords are there and which skills are there. So yellow highlighted words are the we can say the keywords, and green highlighted words are the skills which you can include in your resume. Now, one thing, don't copy the job description as it is mentioned in the yellow and paste it into your resume. It won't help. Again, you would be stuck out due to plagiarism. Find out some synonyms on Google, uh, search it out, place it in your sentences, change the language, do that, and you will be totally fine. And the only thing in your resume which will not be considered plagiarism is the skill section, because MS Excel, PowerPoint, Google Suite, Google Analytics, these are the common things which every person on the resume has. So don't be afraid of plagiarism in the skill section. You are totally fine up till the skill section. Once you enter in the work experience and academic project, your plagiarism check will start. Yeah. So this is the job description, say for a supply chain analyst role, and just go through this job description. I'll give you 2 minutes, and then we can discuss how particular points highlighted in the yellow are suitable for key points. Cool. So if you see the first sentence, own and iterate the existing inventory optimization logic. It is very clear that the manager for this job role is looking for a person who knows inventory optimization. So you could include this in your work experience or in your academic project. Say for inventory optimization, you could use any other stuff or any other word like resource optimization, so that you don't get caught in plagiarism. For lead time, you could say any other time related with lead time, for example, cycle time or the process time or something like that. Then you will see there's one thing mentioned in the forecast. So you could include forecast or predictive analysis in your resume. Just find out the words in the job description which you think that, okay, this manager has specifically mentioned these words so that the applicant knows these stuff and could come in handy when we are doing this stuff in the job. So just look for them. For example, disposition decisions. Disposition decisions are very important in the company. Even if you have done some decisions like this in your past work experience or in your academic project, or if you used to play in a particular team for a particular sports, if you have taken those decisions, mention that on your resume. It will go a long way. Now, see if right next to disposition decision, it is financial reserves. So just enter some financial keywords like financial analytics, or you manage the balance sheet or something like that. So these are the things which you need to include. For example, although it is written lead implementation, but if a person knows how to implement a project, he could do the deployment or implementation of any particular product or any particular service or any particular key. So instead of implementation, don't write the word implementation in your resume. You could use any other synonyms like deployment or started or something like that. Now, if we come to the green highlighted sections, there are some specific tools which are actually written in the job description so that you know that you need to have these skills before entering into the job. For example, SAP or SQL or Power BI, Tableau. Believe me, when it is written like, okay, mm, operationalize in SAP, is just written like that, and it is not written that strong expertise is required. Even if you know the basic of SAP, just mention SAP of the just mention SAP in your skill section. You don't need to be the master of it. You can easily go into the company and learn things. Now, this is for the full-time job, but if you are looking for the co-op or an internship, it doesn't matter whether you are having these skills or not, because you are going in a particular company to learn about those things. It doesn't matter at all. For example, I'll give you my example. Wayfair used to rely heavily on SQL, and before entering Wayfair or while giving the interview for Wayfair, I didn't even know anything about SQL. I went into the company. I in the interview I literally told them that okay, I am ready to learn SQL, but as of right now, if you like give me marks on the scale of 0 to 10, I am zero for SQL. I don't know anything about SQL. Just be clear with the interviewer, but make a particular feel that okay, you are ready to learn things, and you would be a great asset once you learn the things. So internships and co-ops are the programs which help you to learn things. You don't need to have any other prior knowledge for ending in a particular role. So keep that in mind and be confident in your resume. Just match it with the job description. Yeah. So here I wrap up my presentation. In short, resume is nothing. It is just एक पन्ने का सफर है जो तुम्हारी मौजूदगी में तुम्हारी पूरी कहानी बता दे. बस इसका कुछ ऐसा असर है. Keep this in mind. This will be the first point of contact with the recruiter. Your resume should speak for itself. There should be no point in front of the recruiter that has not been told about the resume. Over here, I wrap up my presentation. Thank you everyone for joining this. And I am online for next 30 to 45 minutes. If anyone has questions, they could post it or they could be unmuted. I could directly chat up with them. And you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn and happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pawan, for bringing so many wonderful insights. And especially in regards to plagiarism, I think a lot of students are not aware about it. And usually the trend is that students generally borrow the resumes of their friends and they take points from there, or they copy it from the online resume, which is the thing. So thank you for enlightening everybody about the ATS and how the overall system is working. Because within SOP and essays, we were pretty sure that universities are using plagiarism checker, right? But this is the first time we came to that within universities or within recruiters also they are using plagiarism check for the resumes.
Actually, and right now universities have also started using the plagiarism check. I won't take the name of the agency, but they used to give the same resume to each and every person. And in Northeastern University, they like 2 students were caught for having the same resume. And they were blacklisted from their application. So don't use the same resume. Create your own resume. You will end up in a good place. Just have confidence in your resume.
Right, Pawan. So I think a lot of participants would like to know more about your journey, like how difficult or easy it was. Like a lot of people, they think that US is very promising when it comes to job opportunities, getting internship. Northeastern University, in fact, is very famous for its co-op opportunities that it is providing, right? And a lot of people think it's easy to come. So I just want
Yeah.
your experience about that, how easy or difficult it was to get those co-ops, converting this full-time opportunity. If you can just share that experience with everybody.
Yeah. So I'll share my whole experience from my journey back in India to journey till now.
Right.
Basically, when I gave GRE and IELTS, I started the process back, say, 1 year before reaching USA. I started giving out my questionnaire to Skill Maestro so that they could build up my profile for SOPs or LORs and all those stuff. Once that was done, I started applying in 10 universities, which Pankaj sir and Sandeep sir told me that in those 10 universities, 3 should be the top universities, 4 should be the medium range university, 3 should be the low range university or the safe university, which you can easily get into. Why I'm bringing this point is because you need to do the same thing while you are doing the job application. If you are applying for 10 jobs in a particular day, 3 jobs should be like that is your dream job. You know you cannot reach over there. 5 jobs should be the jobs like okay, it is a medium range job and you could reach easily over there. And 2 should be the safe jobs. Okay, that if recruiter sees my profile, I am the best fit for this job. I would share my example. The role which I took up with Google required 5 to 7 years of work experience. It was specifically mentioned on the job description, but still I applied on it, got the interview, and I didn't had any hope that I would turn it into a job, but just take a chance, you will end up in a good place. Now, once your profile is set up, you get an admit from a good university. Be thorough with Amritsar regarding the visa interview. Once you crack the visa interview, it's not that your path is pretty clear. It's like your journey has just started. Life is going to slap you very badly once you land up in USA. I have been living in Indore at my home since last 20 years, and I had to suddenly change my environment. I had to face a lot of homesickness, and at the same moment, I had to find a part-time job as well. So that was one of the difficult things. And plus, the US education system is totally different from Indian education system. Don't come with a feeling that, okay, if you are a good student in Indian education system, you just mucked up the things and you are scoring good marks, you won't be able to do that over here. Because your marks will be considered based on projects, assignments, your final exams, your research work and all those stuff. So that is a different thing we can discuss in a different seminar. But yeah, once my first semester got complete, I had an aim written on my diary that, okay, while my first semester is getting complete, I will complete my resume, I will complete my cover letter, and I will start applying for internships and co-ops 6 months before I am eligible to go on a co-op. Why I did that was because once you start applying for co-ops or internships, once you get the rejection email, that is when you get a tight slap that, okay, your resume doesn't stand anywhere. You need to make changes in the resume. It's like if you're getting eligible for going on an internship tomorrow, it's not that you can start your application process today. You need to start at least 6 months back so that you can change your resume or your cover letter accordingly. That is one of the biggest things. And even though your resume starts to gets you interview, it's not guaranteed that in the first interview you'll crack the job or you'll crack the co-op or internship. But take that interview as an experience which you can use in your next interviews. You will know how interviewers ask you questions or what is their mentality. So before cracking a job at Google, there were many rounds of interviews, which if I hadn't interviewed for Amazon or Facebook, I would not have been able to crack those. I understood the mentality, what Amazon recruiters were taking, what Facebook recruiters were looking for. And I kept on implementing or improvising those things in my interview and then finally cracked the job. So coming back to co-op or internship, start 6 months back. It won't be easy, but yeah, you will have time to find out jobs and internship because there are a lot of graduate programs a lot of funding given by the government to the companies so that they could train students in the co-op program or internship program. Don't think that you don't have any work experience, so you wouldn't end up anywhere. Talking about me, I didn't have any full-time work experience. I graduated in May 2018, started my master's education in August 2018. So I didn't have any full-time job experience, but still I landed up a job. Keep on applying, things will work out. Keep on improvising your resume, customizing your resume. And once you get a co-op or once you get an internship, don't think that you are entitled. Don't think ठीक है भाई मैंने तो इतनी बड़ी कंपनी में इंटर्नशिप कर ली मेरे को फुल टाइम जॉब बहुत आसानी से मिल जाएगा. The hard work which you put in finding internship or co-op, multiplied by 1,000 times, that much hard work is required for finding a full-time job in USA. Because in co-op and internship, there's nothing called sponsorship. In full-time job, there's a biggest roadblock called sponsorship, where recruiters need to be 100% sure that, okay, if they are going to sponsor you for a full-time job, why you are the best fit for that role, and will you be sticking on with that company for 6 to 7 years, or say 8 to 9 years if they would be doing the green card for you. So just keep on applying, do the hard work, you'll end up somewhere. And once you know that you have done your internship, and say if you are left with only 1 or 2 semesters, start building up your resume for the full-time job. Start bringing up the transferable skills you earned in the co-op or internship on your resume. Start bringing up the academic projects which you did in your master's degree or undergrad degree on the resume. Once you do that, start applying for the jobs. If you are starting to find a job and internship 6 months back, for full-time job, you need to start applying at least 10 months back. I knew I was graduating in April and I started applying back in September. I still remember that my internships recruiter reached out to me saying that you are just a co-op in our company and now only you have started applying for full-time jobs in our company. So that is the point when you have to start applying. 10 months back, start applying. Big companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple, they hire 6 months prior to their job role starting. So keep applying because the interview process is very exhausting. They have like 6 to 7 rounds of interviews, and then also you have to meet to the vice president of that team and all those stuff. So it takes a lot of time. Plus, for example, co-op and internship, you can get a co-op and internship with 500, 600 applications. For job application, you at least need to do 10 applications per day. And you need to analyze yourself. If you are doing 10 applications, within a week you are doing at least 50 to 60 applications. Are you getting any responses? If in 2 weeks you didn't get any response, change your resume. Again, you changed up your resume, you didn't get any response, again change your resume. There will be a point when you will start to get responses from the recruiter, and that point you will see that, okay, your resume is clearing out ATS. Now, yeah, one of the biggest feedback which many people don't know, if you are getting automated rejects, that means your resume is not clearing the ATS. But if the recruiter is rejecting your resume, that means your resume cleared out ATS, it went to the manager or the hiring manager and he didn't like your resume. So be assured that, okay, your resume cleared the ATS. Now you need to work more on the bullet points, change the language or change the results, or do something which will create a confidence in the hiring manager or the recruiter that, okay, this is the best person we know, we need to hire him. Many recruiters ask one question to themselves that, okay, do you have a confidence in this resume or not? I met a recruiter from Honda like 9 months back, and she told me that, okay, if we are not able to convince ourselves that this resume will end up in a very good role in our company, we won't put forward his resume, whether his resume clears out ATS or not. So these are the few things which you need to keep in mind. And there will be multiple points where your patience will go out. you will think that, okay, I am not applying to any more roles. I will go back to India. I am entitled with US master's degree and I will get a good job in back in India. Don't think in that direction. Many people, even I came here with a heavy education loan. We will not be able to pay back those loans back in India. We will keep on working for 20 years, 30 years. We won't be able to do that because obviously we won't be ending or starting a job on the executive level where our salaries are like 3 lakh Indian rupees per month or 4 lakh Indian rupees per month. You need to be very practical. You need to have patience. And there were points where I also broke out, but I kept one thing that, okay, I am doing 10 applications every day. And if you are in US, if you are on East Coast, start early in the morning. I used to wake up 5:30 in the morning to do the applications for the East Coast. And by the time, say by 8:30, I used to complete 6 or 7 applications on the East Coast. For the next 2 hours, I used to do the applications for the Central US, that is Chicago to Texas. And finally, from 10:30, I used to start the applications for West Coast because West Coast is 3 hours behind East Coast. So say if I start application on 10:30, it would be 7:30 in on the West Coast, and the industry won't have started because recruiters generally come into the office for the first 1 hour. They just look into the ATS that whose resumes have been shortlisted, and then they schedule a phone screening. So if you are a late sleeper, take the advantage of that. Like keep awake till 4:30, 5:30, do the application, and then finally sleep. Or if you are not late sleeper, wake up early. This will help a lot. Many people do, like they are waking up at 10:30 and then doing the application and then not getting any responses, and then they say that we are not getting any responses. Try to think like a recruiter. Try to think like what a company's culture is or what they would do. So keep on doing that because let me be very clear. In the central time of the day, that is from noon to 4 p.m., everyone is applying on LinkedIn. So the ATS breaks out during that time. And recruiters generally don't like to go into ATS to see which resumes have been shortlisted during that time because a lot of stuff is happening in that ATS. So they generally do the ATS stuff early in the morning as soon as they reach to the office. So coming back to my point, have patience, keep on applying. You will end up a job. And plus, whenever your EAD is starting, many people won't know this, but whenever you land down in USA, you would come to know about this. Whenever your EAD start date is, just start applying before 6 months because you only have 90 days. And US recruitment process for big companies at least takes 2 to 2.5 months to complete the recruitment process. They have multiple rounds of multiple rounds of interviews, multiple rounds of case studies. That actually takes 2 to 2.5 months. For Google, I would be very clear. I've applied back in, I guess, March end or something like that. And then finally, I got a job offer back in July. So keep patience, keep on applying, and at one point of time, you will be there. Just don't lose the hope because there are many people, and don't compare yourself with people who have ample amount of work experience. US doesn't consider that. And I am speaking this from my personal experience. I had 0 years of work experience. And also I'm working on a job role which required 5 to 7 years of work experience. So everyone is equal as soon as they are graduating from a good university or a medium range university. Everyone is equal. Yeah.
Thank you, Pawan, again for sharing so many wonderful advices. And the most commendable part being that even in these crises, you have managed to crack such wonderful job offers. And now I know the reason, all these strategies and everything which you have been discussing, that morning 5:30, I was waking up and applying for different time zones and synchronizing your resume application according to the time zone is one of the best advices which I have heard in recent times. I haven't seen these advices over Google or somebody telling me that according to the time zone they have been applying for the jobs. And which is what a lot of people even ask, that if I'll be staying in Boston or in the East Coast, would I be able to get jobs within the West Coast, California? or maybe in Seattle area. So Pawan is one of the examples who graduated from Boston, but he has picked up his job within Google in California. So can you tell us more
Just,
about your role, Pawan, within Google as a supply chain specialist?
yeah, so at Google, I am working as a commodity and supply chain specialist who is responsible for supply relationship management, procurement of electronic devices which Google's data center is using, or managing the logistics part, that how they get transported from the supplier to their actual point or the actual manufacturing site or actual data center. So I'm responsible for that. I have been in this role for last, say, 3 weeks. I just completed my 3 week tenure today, and let's see what new challenges this company has.
One of the
But
things,
yeah, if
yeah, Pawan, keep going.
but yeah, I can talk more about my co-op experience because I worked there for like 7 months. I joined Wayfair as a supply chain management co-op. Basically, supply chain, like people who are going into supply chain might be knowing this, might not be knowing this, I don't know. Supply chain is not just a single domain. Supply chain has multiple domains, starting from supplier relationship management, going to procurement, going to commodity management, coming towards logistics, handling the transportation engineering, doing the data analytics, doing the data science for supply chain. So many people see the job description as supply chain analyst, and many data analyst aspirants don't apply on those roles. So supply chain is something which you can easily learn once you are in the company. But if a person is putting down a job for supply chain analyst, automatically business analyst and data analyst are eligible for those roles. So don't see that, okay, it's a supply chain analyst role. I don't know nothing about supply chain. Just apply on that role. Now, going to my experience, I started as a supply chain management co-op over there. I started basically in one team, that is transportation execution team. But I knew that I had to learn in this co-op as much as I could because I didn't have any full-time prior experience. So I had to make the best use of it. When I started my journey with Wayfair, I was a part of one team. When I ended my journey with Wayfair, I was a part of 6 different teams. And I was the only person who got 6 farewell dinners from 6 different teams at Wayfair. So be ready for the opportunities. As soon as you see that, okay, there's one project in another team coming up, but they don't have much hands on that project, just be the sweeper of that project. Like, even if you are just getting the data entry role in that team, just go and do that. My thinking was that if I am getting a, say, if I am in the transportation, but I am getting the smallest data entry load in the transportation or say the logistics team, I would definitely do that because I would get to learn about that team, and I could easily talk about these things in the interview that I am ready for the ambiguity to take up in the job. Many people in USA think that, okay, their job is limited to whatever is written on the job description. But you need to make sure that the recruiter or the hiring manager is comfortable giving you the work which is not mentioned in the job description. I have done at Wayfair, I used to do work which was not even written in my job description. For example, it was not written that I should do the coding on SQL, but I did coding on SQL. I was open to take more and more work, and some other people over there were just doing the time pass, or we can say they were just sticking to one domain. They were not expanding their domains. I don't know what their thinking was or not, but yeah, this is what I did, and they actually went out of their way to provide me a second co-op opportunity, which many people like. It is a bit complicated to go on a second co-op without the CPT in USA, but they went out of the way to do that because they were on the hiring freeze and they could not provide me full-time job. So there are a lot of things. Just ready to learn new things, and you will find a way, a good way out of it. And for all the, I saw on my LinkedIn, there were a lot of questions about data analytics or business analytics. Just 3 skills: SQL, Excel, Python, or R. You will excel in the data analytics or business analytics field. Many people think that data analytics field or business analytics is more about coding. No, business analytics is not about coding. Business analytics is about running your mind for the critical thinking capabilities or the innovation capabilities. I was very scared about analytics or the coding part, but like last week only, I graduated from Harvard University for the executive business analytics course. In Harvard University, they didn't even taught a single coding language. They just taught me how to do the case studies, how to approach the critical thinking. If a company is facing a problem, how to use the data to solve that problem, how you could implement a particular strategy. That is what all analytics is about. Many people in India think that data analytics and business analytics is just about coding. It is a biggest myth. Even if you don't know coding, you could end up in a good analytical role. So keep those things in mind. Just brush up your skills for SQL, Excel, and Python or R. Just that. Nothing else, nothing fancy, nothing Hadoop, nothing Java, nothing anything. You will end up in a very good role if you have these three skills.
Again, wonderful advice, Pawan. So that is what a lot of students, when they ask us what is difference between data analytics, data science, or maybe business analytics. So that is exactly what we have been conveying, that analytics is more about, business analytics specifically is more about becoming a problem solver. That ability to have a big picture approach when it comes to solving the problems, raising the right questions, coming up with right hypothesis and solution. And then analytics and data part is a way to solve that problem, right? Like one of the things you'll be, one of the tools or technology that you'll be using to solve the problem. So few of the participants have been asking questions. They've raised their questions in the chat box, Pawan. So I'll just read it out for you. Ayush is asking that he is confused about the font sizes. Should one use different font size for heading, subheading, and text, or should it be same for throughout? So about the size, font size should it remain same for the heading and subheading, or the text?
Okay. So font size could be similar, could be different, as long as your resume is presentable. For example, so first feedback, your name should be in the bold and the biggest font size. After that, for example, say you were working at XYZ company. Just make sure that your XYZ company is standing out. And then your bullet points. If you're keeping the font size same, just make sure that your company is in bold letters. Right? You should have, like, ATS doesn't have a hard stop of fonts between the bullet points and the headings. It's just the matter how recruiter sees it. If recruiter is not able to distinguish between your company name and the bullet points, your resume won't go anywhere. He or she won't even read that resume. As simple as that. Because even after ATS, recruiters have to select a person for an interview out of a pool of say 500 to 1,000 people. So they have to go through the multiple resumes. Just make sure that your resume is presentable and lies within these font sizes which I mentioned in the slide.
Can we get to see your resume, Pawan? That will give everybody good idea what kind of resumes are being put in Google.
Yeah, I can share my resume, but without the bullet points, because I have been faced that one person has copied my resume. So I can give you the whole format of the resume.
Yeah, sure.
And I can help out all the people on making up the bullet points.
Just the small part of it so that they can see what exactly you have written in the resume with what font style and size. So they can just
definitely. Yeah.
So be very careful about this advice which Pawan has been stressing upon within the entire webinar, that do not copy your points from anybody else's resume. Even if you like certain points, just try to tweak the language, paraphrase it. Even if you would like to use the keywords, it's completely fine, but then change the entire language. The combination of words shouldn't come same as any other resume. In fact, he was telling today that he has shared one more advice that within LinkedIn also they are seeing that if students have copied it from LinkedIn or not. And that recruiter is not going to check. Obviously, the software is doing that part. So you might not have that opportunity to explain it to somebody, right? Because ATS rejected you. You're not going to explain it to ATS why my resume wasn't copied or this and that. So it's better to keep it original within your own words, with your language, as much as possible.
Yeah, like for example, right now Amazon is hiring, like they have a hiring surge in USA,
Mm-hmm.
and the people who have been blacklisted from Amazon because of copying it from LinkedIn or whatever reason, they are not even able to apply, even though they might be the best fit for that role.
Oh,
So that is one thing which ATS can stop you from. And don't think that ATS is nothing and you can easily crack ATS.
in
Don't
fact,
underestimate ATS.
a few days back when I was having a conversation with Pawan, he told me one more thing that a friend, somebody approached Pawan for a job, for a recruitment, and within ATS, they identified that he has changed his work experience. Like earlier, his work experience was into a different company or different role, and then later on, he has changed his work experience. So again, his resume was rejected within the ATS process only. So again, be very
Yeah,
careful about it, what you have written within your resume in past jobs when you applied. And now if you're going to change the entire work experience in the company, you have to be very careful about it. Otherwise, you'll not be passing the ATS stage.
yeah. So many people might have questions on this that, okay, you were working on a multiple roles in a multiple company. So automatically the names will change. But make sure that the timeline which you were working in that company or a particular company remains the same. Don't change the timeline or don't change the timeline. Like it keeps on overlapping with different companies. Don't do that. And even if you were doing two jobs, write a note at the end of your resume that timelines are overlapping and I was working with two different companies at a single time. Be very specific on those things.
Right. So Chayan has asked me one question. He has put that in the private window. He's asking, is the job
Mhm.
role shown by Pawan, sir, asked for a minimum work experience of 3.5 years? So if a student has 1 or 2 years of work experience, then can we apply? So as Pawan has already mentioned this part that his job actually required work experience when he applied for this Google role. They were asking for a few years of work experience. I think it was 4 or 5 years, right?
5 to 7 years of work
5 to 7 years. But still, again, as he said, that with the right strategy and approach, and because he had already applied to so many jobs, he used that entire experience and the rejections he had in order to get this kind of role. So again, even without a work experience, because sometimes what happens is that although within timeline you do have 4 or 5 years of work experience, but your experience might not be very relevant with that role. Your abilities or skills which you
experience.
have gained in your past work experience, that might not be so much in match or aligns with the role the company is looking for, right? So at times they do not consider the duration of work experience, but more like as he was mentioning that certain soft skills, if you are mentioning in your resume, like leadership role, innovation, team working abilities, if you're highlighting those aspects, so maybe they can disregard that duration of work experience just to have you with the other aspects within your profile.
Yeah. And it is not necessary that your work experience would be like if they are asking for 5 to 7 years of work experience, it is not necessary that you need to have that work experience in the job role.
Hmm.
For example, you did a part-time job in say your masters or your undergrad. You can also include that as your experience. You did some academic project, that is also considered your experience. Or if you played for a soccer team or you led a soccer team for 2 years, that is also your experience, which is showing your leadership skills. It doesn't matter that your hard stop for the experiences just for the jobs which you were doing or the internships which you were doing. It matters what education are you taking or what academic projects are you doing.
Right, right. So Punya has one question. She is asking about the cover letters for the resume. So within US, Punya, it
Mhm.
is very important to have cover letters. Unlike India, where your resume would be going to the recruiter, within US they expect you to have a cover letter as well, because obviously you are not there in front of your recruiter to convey all the things why you'll be good fit for the job. So your cover letter is your opportunity. It's kind of mini SOP thing which we call, in which you are conveying it to the recruiter why you'll be good fit for your, this particular role given your skills and work experience. So it's basically a very short summary of your life, of your experience, and why you'll be good fit for the role, what makes you good fit, and why you are interested in that role. That is what you'll be conveying. So basically, what I remember within my experience when I was applying for jobs and internship, we used to have at least 5 to 6 cover letters ready for a different kind of role. As Pawan was mentioning, that you'll be tweaking your resume for every kind of role. You'll make little changes. If it's a logistic position, your resume would be a little different. You'll be using different keywords. Similarly, within cover letter also, you'll keep 4 to 5 versions ready for different kind of roles. Right, Pawan? If you would
Right.
like to add
So
something to
for
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So resume is something which will show your technical skills, your management skills, and all those stuff. Cover letter is something which will back up those skills.
Right.
For example, in supply chain management, you wrote that you did logistics optimization and all those stuff and different things. Your cover letter will show that okay, you did this logistic optimization with the help of this 25 people's team. You managed this team, you led a team, and that will back it up. And then that will also show the things which are not written on your resume. For example, you got multiple awards at your co-op or multiple awards at your internship, or your academic project was nominated as the best project in the university. Those things actually go in your in your cover letter. And always customize cover letter as you customize your resume.
Right. Right.
Because if your front page, if the name of the book is changing, you need to change the cover, or you need to change the story of that book as well. You cannot have the same name for all the books and same story. So keep on changing, keep on customizing.
So the next question is from Ashish. He's asking, what are the most highly coveted jobs companies in supply chain management for grad students within university campuses? For example, some top 5 supply chain management roles which usually graduate students are getting.
Okay. Uh, so first and the most hot job for supply chain is supply chain data scientist. Like who knows about supply chain and who knows about Python and machine learning stuff. So that many companies like Amazon or any other company are automating their supply chain. For example, where humans don't need to interfere, that okay, this PO has been placed or this purchase order has been placed. Automatically, when a truck full of POs are placed, that truck will automatically go from point A to point B, pick it up, go to the warehouse, and then deliver it to the customer. So that optimization is right now happening in supply chain in USA. So hot job is supply chain data scientist. Second comes supply chain data analyst, because once the strategies are built, or in order to build out the strategies, we need to have the data. We need to have a person who could analyze the data. Once that is done, the third job comes in supply chain associate. Supply chain associate or supply chain management associate is more towards the strategic thinking, that once he has the data, he could build out the strategies to implement or improve the supply chain of a particular company. Now, the fourth job we can say is the supply chain finance, because um, there's a very big company. Okay, supply chain team cannot directly be dealt with the corporate finance. They need to have some middleman. That is the supply chain finance team, who could link the corporate finance and the supply chain team. That okay, this is your budget. You need to do improvement within this budget, and you need to build out profits from this budget. So supply chain finance looks for that. And the final and the most, like I feel that most exciting, because that is the operations management role that happens actually in the warehouses where actual supply chain is occurring, because that is the ground level where you see the things, that okay, this is your strategy which we built in the headquarters, but this is what we are applying in the actual world. When I was at Wayfair, I got an opportunity to visit their biggest warehouse in California. I have visited multiple Amazon warehouses. I actually see that what strategies are built on paper, or what strategies are built on the software, are actually being implemented on the ground level, and how you need to manage people, like manage associates, so that they could understand the value of that project. Because the chain between the upper level supply chain managers and the ground staff who is doing like the driver work or the picking and packing stuff, that their values change a lot. So there are operations managers in between who need to understand the role of supply chain managers as well, and who need to understand the value to create in front of the low level jobs, like low level jobs as in warehouse jobs like picking, packing, drivers. They need to understand the value, that okay, why we are running 5 trucks a day instead of 10 trucks a day. So these are the 5 jobs which I think are like very good. And for the operations manager, actually people who are in USA can apply for Amazon. Many people don't know this. Amazon is hiring graduate students for area manager roles.
Mm-hmm.
There are Amazon is expanding like crazy. They are opening warehouses in each and every city right now. So they are hiring multiple area managers, and area managers, by area managers, don't think that it is a high level job. Just they are hiring the graduate people who could understand and build a link between supply chain managers and the associates in the warehouse. So that is very cool job. I interviewed till the final round, but I didn't get it. But it was one of the best jobs which I had applied
Right, Pawan. And especially because of the COVID situation, I think a lot of companies, they've started automating their supply chain management, right? They've included
for. Right.
robotics and automation, and less of
Mhm.
human intervention is there within a lot of job opportunities now.
Right. And many big companies are actually starting the manufacturing sites where they are building up robots for their warehouses. Nothing else, just for the warehouses, so that they could reduce the human interaction.
Right, right, right. So Rashal has a question. Rashal is asking that Rashal is basically a student who is doing his engineering management from St. Cloud State University. He's saying that every time I get system generated rejection, this means ATS has not been
Mhm.
cleared and I have not cracked the reason. That is the reason so far uh,
Mhm.
that is what he feels. Is there any particular certification that will be helpful in supply chain and in resume where we can mention it? Any suggestion for the cover letter? Please share the format if possible.
Yeah. So certification don't help at all. What I think,
Mhm.
certification only help when you are implementing those skills in a particular project or in a particular, say, part-time job or a job. You did a certification doesn't count anywhere in front of the recruiter. You need to have the result that okay, you studied this, you did implement this transferable skill from the certification to your work experience, and then you produce this much result. So in my resume, I don't have a certification section. I didn't even include Harvard in my resume because I haven't used the Harvard skills which I have learned the last week in anywhere in my work experience. I might be using it in Google, might not be using it, but if I use it, then I would include it in my work experience. I cannot get a job based on certification from Harvard. So keep those things in mind. And yeah, if you're getting an ATS related email and you're not getting in touch with the recruiter, just search on LinkedIn, recruiter for XYZ company. People will show up who are the recruiters in that company. Uh, Use LinkedIn Premium, send emails to them, send 10 emails to 10 different recruiters, at least one of them will reply. Because recruiters are there to give us a proper feedback.
Okay. So, is there any way also, Pawan, to check what could be wrong with his resume that it is not getting through ATS? So, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, the link and website from where he can upload the resume and he can see if there are certain things which are not
Mhm.
in alignment
Yeah.
with the ATS process.
Right. So, like, just get in touch with the seniors who have secured jobs because I know there are some very hardworking people who are my friends who graduated from St. Cloud, and I know professors at St. Cloud who actually help out a lot on resume building and all those stuff. Get in touch with them. There's a link or a website called VMock. Make an account on that. If you make an account from your own personal email ID, you will get only one free resume review. So just make your final resume and then upload it over there so that you know that okay, these are things are wrong, and then you could change them and okay, you are good to go. But check within your career centers resources that whether they use VMock or not. Because as far as I know, many universities are using VMock and they are giving 10 free resume reviews. If not, go to your professors or go to your career centers and ask them what is going wrong with my resume, and then keep on changing the resume. Don't stick on to one resume that okay, this resume will only get me a job. Keep on changing and keep multiple copies of the resume. Do that. And if you are confused between two resumes, everyone has two email IDs. One the personal email ID, one is for the university email ID. Take two resumes, apply with both the resumes on for the same job description, and see if one of them gets shortlisted on. So that is what I could help. And even if you want help on the resume, we can connect over LinkedIn. I could help out on your resume, and then we can take it forward from there.
Right. Ashish has one more question, Pawan. He is asking
Mhm.
about the Amazon Pathways program. What exactly are Pathways program? How to go about it?
Okay. So Amazon's Pathway program, if you're looking for an H1B and all those stuff, they generally don't do it until and unless you are a very out of the league student. But you can take that program, apply for that, make always keep your cover letter and resume handy. Once you get that opening, apply on that opening, reach out to the recruiter on LinkedIn. There will be multiple recruiters, but look for the recruiters for the Pathway program because their Pathway program is one of the biggest Pathway programs in America. So look for that recruiter, reach out to her, tell her that okay, you applied for this, and if you like your resume, she can pull it out of the ATS without going in over there. Pathways program is very good over there. You get a rotational program in that where you could end up in supply chain finance, supply chain analytics, supply chain associate role, or something like that. Keep in mind, I always suggest everyone, whoever is on the STEM extension, H1B should not be your first priority to get a job. Look for good company, look for good role, enter the company, prove in front of the managers that you are a good team player or you are a hard worker. You will automatically get H1B sponsorships eventually because you have three chances. Even if you miss one chance, you have two more chances. It is more difficult for people who are on the non-STEM extension degrees who have only one chance. So it's okay for them to be like more concerned about the H1B, but people who have 3 years in hand don't be concerned about the H1B. Everything runs out smooth in the end if you are a good employee.
Ayush has one question. What courses would you suggest for supply chain management? Like Ayush, are you talking about some preparatory courses even before you get into the program? Right. He's asking the questions he can, like the courses he can do right now in order to
Mhm.
prepare his profile better.
Okay. So before going to into supply chain, I didn't do anything, but I have heard a lot from many people that MIT's supply chain micromasters or something. There, I
MicroMaster.
think Pankaj sir
Right.
has a link for that. That course is very good. If you are not doing that, just focus on your multiple skills. For example, you do one online course for the supply chain, do one online course for say business analytics or data analytics, do one course for the data visualization. So now you have the knowledge for supply chain, you have the knowledge for the analytics behind supply chain, and now you have the presentation skills that are used in the visualization or that can be used for the data. So in all, you are a very good package for the supply chain analyst role, supply chain strategy making role, and all those stuff. And eventually, whenever you come for masters, if you are going into supply chain, you will be taking advanced courses in supply chain. So just make your think yourself as a good package that okay, if down the line, say 10 years down the line, supply chain goes out of business, you have multiple transferable skills for the analytics where you could end up in different operations analytics or something like that. Where, for example, supply chain operations and industrial engineering go hand in hand. You could easily switch between these roles. Taking my experience in engineering management degree, I didn't only take all the supply chain courses. I took courses from operations, product development, business management, business analytics, business development. So in all, I was focusing on the engineering management, but I have the skills to end up in any role. So keep those things in mind. Just don't stick to the supply chain domain. Everyone has seen that what pandemic can do. It can disrupt the industry very badly. So be a flexible and a versatile resource for the industry.
Right. Such a good advice, Pawan. Lokendra is asking, is there any role of universities to getting the job? So within US, universities do have career cell, career mentoring cell where you can go and you can meet whoever the in charge, whosoever is the in charge of that. You can go and meet him and can have your resume reviewed with him. You can also have mock interview sessions with him. So all of those things they'll be providing. But usually universities over there do not conduct an on-campus recruitment kind of thing. Northeastern University, although has a co-op opportunity thing, and again, which they'll be what they'll be doing is that they'll be putting up all those co-op options on their portal. A university portal is there, a career portal, on which they'll be putting up all those co-ops. You can just go and you can you can apply for all those co-ops through online process. So physically, you'll
Yeah.
not find that with, unlike India, where universities are asking companies to come on campus and participate in the recruitment process. You'll not see those kind of things over there looking. But then these are ways. I think Pawan, when he started the session, he told you what are the ways to get the jobs, right?
Yeah. And I don't think that universities over here will be doing the campus placements. The system over here doesn't work like Indian campus placement system. Like their companies are coming, they are taking the quantitative test, and then they are taking the verbal test, and then you're going for the interview, and then the campus placement officer is changing the results and getting someone in. That doesn't happen over here. You have to be on your toes. You have to apply on LinkedIn. Now, when you are graduating during the graduation season, 3 months before the graduation season, career fair happens at universities. My biggest advice was start applying at least 10 months back, so that once you apply in the companies, those companies will actually come up in the career fair, so that you have direct contact with the recruiters that, okay, you applied in that for that position in that company. Can you please go and see my profile in the ATA? Now you are the first presenter in front of the recruiters which are coming in the career fair. That is the point where you could use your networking skills to show that, okay, you are one of the good presenters, you are one of the person who has good communication skills, and you can stand out from different people in the ATS. So I have seen where many people's resumes have been rejected in ATS, but companies came in career fair and they took them for initial phone screening. It doesn't matter whether they ended up in that role or not, but what matters is whether you are getting an interview or not. That matters a lot.
Right. Ashutosh has a question, Pawan. He's asking, did you network with somebody before applying to Google? Like within Google, did you network with someone when you were applying, even before
No,
the?
I no, I didn't even know a single person in Google.
Right,
I
right,
didn't know how the process used to work. Like every time interview used to happen, they used to say that, okay, there is a next round of interview, there is a next round of interview. I didn't even know that their interview process was so long. I knew from Glassdoor that, okay, their interview is different depending on the different job roles, but I didn't know anyone at Google who could guide me through. I had like my papa's friend was working at Google like around 10 years back or so, I guess, but he was not working with Google right now. So
right, right.
nothing.
So Ashutosh, but it's good if you can network with people on LinkedIn, but do not do it forcefully. I've seen a lot of times what people do is that once they get their initial screening, they start connecting randomly with anybody who's working within that organization. So do not do it forcefully. Do not do it that way. Do not start spamming people. Try to connect with somebody who with whom you can personally reach out and will not be offended in that way. And there you can maybe if you'd like to, because see again references they are only used in US to land up the interview opportunities, not to clear the interviews. Nobody can help you to get clear the interviews. You only can help yourself to get cleared from the interviews. Just to have that opportunity, if a reference is there, they'll always refer you for the interview opportunity. So you'll land up with that opportunity, but to clear the interview rounds, that's totally dependent on you, Ashutosh.
Yeah. And my networking strategy was not like as soon as I got an interview, I'm connecting with people. I started networking with people way back when I landed in US, so that as soon as I got an interview for that company, say Johnson and Johnson, so I used to get in touch with those people. Okay, say hi. We had a conversation 2 months back. Now I am getting interviewed for
Right,
this
right,
role at Johnson and Johnson. So they only offer me the help that, okay, if you are interviewing for this role, we know the manager. We can provide a good feedback for you in front of them. We can put in a good word of mouth. So networking works in this way. Whereas some people, like, I'll take my experience. I just posted on LinkedIn that I got an offer for Google, and two people out of the blue called me and said, "Bhai, refer kar de." I even haven't received my domain name at Google. I haven't started working at Google, and they out of the blue reached out to me saying that refer kar. So it doesn't work like that. Although I want to help them out, but I cannot help them out because I just
Obviously,
started the
you have
job
to
and
know somebody really well in order to refer them, right? So,
yeah,
very honest advice that build up good rapport with somebody uh, whose reference you'll be taking later on in life. But do not do that tomorrow the recruitment process is starting and today I'll connect with a recruiter, I'll drop him an email or somebody who is there, will be your reference over there. You'll connect with him a week before and then you'll expect him to refer you for that job. Quite not possible. And always when you're
yeah,
reaching out to people, do it with the intention of getting mentored, that you're looking for advices and guidance, not just for that particular role and job that please refer me. That looks very it's very obnoxious for recruiters.
yeah. And US doesn't have people like Pankaj sir, Sandeep sir, or Amrit sir. Even though people go to US and they leave the touch with them for last 2 years, and suddenly after the 2 years, when they have to find a job, they give them a call. Pankaj sir, Sandeep sir, and Amrit sir, they help them out. They go out of their way to reach out to their network to get them a job. But in USA, that won't happen. If you are not networking with people, say for last 2 years, 3 years, they won't go out of their way to help you out.
Mm, do we have any more questions? Ayush, what are your thoughts regarding college location in order to fetch a full-time job? So does it matter, Pavan,
Uh,
if I go to a suburban place into a decent
mhm.
university, or should I be going to a city-based university where opportunities are more, even if my university is not so well ranked? This is a typical question which a lot of students have. That should I be compromising on the location, or should I go to bigger cities for my better job opportunities?
Okay, so I'll cover this question in two parts. One, whether I'm going to a good university or not. First, uh, if you're getting a good admit, well, good enough, go to that university. If you are getting a medium range university, think for that. Let's say for St. Cloud State University, although it is a medium range university, but there are people who have landed good job opportunities at Microsoft. There's one person, Nishant Bhosle, who
Mhm.
cracked the job at Microsoft. He's good friend, and I know how hard work he did. So at the end, what matters is how much hard work you are ready to put in. Now, if for the cities, I used to think that, okay, if you are in big city, obviously opportunities are better because career fairs are happening in the city. You can easily step in and go to any hotel or any career fair easily without any registration fee or something like that. That actually doesn't happen in the small cities, but there are some pathways where if you are landing up with small cities, there are some back doors which you could use to find up a job in big cities or find jobs in um, good companies. For example, in small cities, there are a lot of industries. For example, you say in Detroit, everyone says that only mechanical engineers get successful in Detroit. That is not the case because mechanical engineers also require business analysts or data analysts to strive in the international market.
Mm.
So many people can go over there as a business analyst. They could end up doing good, getting a good job over there.
Right. So I think all questions are over, Pavan, and thank you for hosting this wonderful session. Especially for these students who have been struggling there, who are losing hopes because of the COVID situation. A lot of them have been in touch with me. They've been they are worried about their future because of the COVID situation. A lot of companies they freeze their hiring, so students are very uncertain. And I hope this session is going to be very helpful to them and to the ones who will be aiming for their universities next year or who are going within spring or fall intake. I'm sure all your advices which you have shared with us about ATS, about resume, about the approach for recruitment, co-op, internship, that is going to be immensely helpful for one.
Hopefully it helps out everyone. And finally, a special thank you to all those people who are on the East Coast. I know it is 1:30 or more than 1:30 a.m. at night, but a big
It's
thank
very
you to all those people on the central US or the East Coast.
right. Thank you so much, Pavan. And with the Pavan story, I can tell you one thing that if you are determined and hardworking, which Pavan has always been, from the point I know when he was coming for his GRE sessions to now, he's that kind of person. If you are giving him 5 responsibilities, he'll come back and he'll deliver you 7. He's that kind of person. And if you are giving him deadline that I am giving you 3 days to complete a task, he'll complete it within one day and he'll come for 2 days more task. Give me more work for those 2 days. So if you have that kind of go-getter attitude, trust me, you'll not have paucity of opportunities within US, be it any country you go. If you have that kind of diligence, persistence, trust me, you'll crack opportunities everywhere. Just not be a procrastinator. Most of us within Indian education system, we actually tend to become a procrastinator in which we tend to push things for the end. Like we'll keep it for the end. Deadline आ जाए फिर देखते हैं हम लोग. Last deadline पे will submit the work and assignment. So that attitude needs to be changed. You have to be proactive and just follow the strategy and advices he has been giving. So this was our first session which we have done for the Great American Dream. We have started a series in which we'll be calling upon other students who have successfully got good opportunities within US and other countries. They'll be sharing about their journey experiences, how difficult or easy it was to get, what kind of opportunities are good within what countries. So you'll be hearing all those success stories and what it takes to get into these jobs. So thank you so much, Pawan, in this regard for starting. Actually, Pawan was the one who has given me this recommendation to start this initiative. He was the one who came up with this idea. And now we are going to continue with this series in which we'll be calling upon the students who are studying there and they'll share their journey and experiences with you guys. So I hope so. It was helpful to all. This session has been recorded. If anybody wants to refer to this particular session later on, we'll always have the recording ready, right? Thank you so much, Pawan. Thank you for doing all of these things for us, for all these students.
Thank you everyone for attending and thank you पंकज सर and संदीप सर. आप लोग हैं तो यूएस में जो बच्चे हैं अभी तक वो हैं टिके हुए यहाँ पे.
Everything is on you guys. How much work, how much hard work you're putting in, that will actually decide your fate. We'll always be there to take care of you, but just keep working hard the way Pawan has been doing. I'm telling you, for all these students who have been part of this session, just keep working hard. I'm telling you, you'll have thriving careers over there. Anywhere, not just US, any place you're going for your career opportunities, you'll find plenty of opportunities if you have the right approach and attitude. And Pawan has been a good example of that. Even in this situation, he had multiple job offers, not just Google. He had offers from other companies as well. And he is still getting offers. He is still getting good offers from other companies when he has joined Google. Right? Thank you everybody for attending this session. Thank you, Pawan. If you have any questions, I will share email ID of Pawan later on. So you guys can have your queries resolved by him anytime. Like you can put him. LinkedIn is a better way to connect with him. He has a LinkedIn profile, so it's better to go on LinkedIn. And a lot of you do not have LinkedIn profile. I keep checking all these students when I'm working on your resume and SOP. I randomly go and I see if you have a profile on LinkedIn. And what I've seen is that a lot of students have not even created their profiles. And even if profiles are there, they are actually non-existent. Nothing is written about yourself, what you have done in past. So try to build a good profile, because again, universities and recruiters, they've started checking your LinkedIn profile also. When they get your resume and it goes through some initial rounds, they make it a point to go to your LinkedIn profile and check it. Right? Thank you so much, Pawan.
Thank you, sir. Bye.